So excited to talk to you today. This film goes so many places I didn't know it was going to go. First of all, I don't know anything about Moscow. The more I look at it, the more I understand it. Um,
Sure.
and it's always just in movies where we see Moscow. There's always a nightclub. I don't know why. There's always a nightclub in Moscow.
Sure.
It's always like some powerful people who are drinking and things like that too. So before you even kind of delved into where this was going to take place and how this was going to work, like what was your thought process?
Well, I think, Moscow is, I think, a misunderstood city for a lot of people that, at least it was for me. It's a very clean city and it's a very wealthy city. And it seemed like a really foreign environment to set the story, especially for younger Americans going there and the language barrier and everything. And then, of course, we're playing on some of what you're talking about with the G wagons and the club and all the sort of theatrics around that.
And the main person we're following is a social media maven, a influencer, which I'm just I don't know if I hate it because I'm not one or I hate it because of what it is. Like I don't understand. There's something in there that's probably my own issues. I'll have to figure out myself. But making that the main person we're following. I mean, how did you come up with the idea of how to show their live stream and all the happy faces, the emojis and all those things? What was your thought process and how you wanted that to be seen, and also maybe even the speed of how that person moves?
Well, at the time when we started working on this version of the film, the one that was eventually made, I was watching a lot of vlog stuff by like Casey Neistat, and I had seen some of the Logan Paul videos and whatnot. But I think it's really interesting seeing these guys who sort of create a personality for themselves, and that personality reflects who they are in real life, and it's sort of circular. And it seemed like a really good entry point to a story like this. I don't know if I'd want to be one of these guys. I think it takes a very special kind of person to be on like that and showcase their sort of life all the
Right.
time. It looks fun and easy, and I know a few, like George Jenko in the movie is a real one of these guys. He's also an actor, and he does a great job in the movie. But his life is centered around making his show of himself. It's amazing.
And then when it came to having Keegan be the guy, what was it about him that made him feel like an influencer?
Keegan grew up around Hollywood, so I think he's been around fame and things like that for a long time. When we first got together, he had read the script and he loved it. He has a pretty serious social media following of his own. He has like 6.5 million followers. So in the first meeting that we took together, he actually went live on his phone, and a couple thousand people were watching all of a sudden, and he connected with a fan live, and she started crying. And I remember thinking like, oh my God, like this is it's such a true thing that's in this script, something that I had no real experience with, but that he confirmed, and he brought an energy to it and a personality that I think elevated it a lot.
And looking for not only your Americans influencers, but your Russians as well. I mean, what was it that you were kind of looking for when it came to some of these roles, especially when you need someone, especially in a suspenseful movie, to kind of turn about face sometimes?
Sure. The most important thing to me, first and foremost, was casting real Russian speakers. Because I hate, and I know Russians, at least the ones that I've talked to, hate it in movies when they cast sort of like non-speakers. It's really obvious really quickly. And since none of the Russian is subtitled, it has to come across as authentic. So we cast people either from Russia or from the surrounding areas, or in the case of Ronan Rubinstein, who grew up in a Russian-speaking household, and were able to really to sort of translate the stuff live in their own way. We had our camera operator is also Russian native, so he was able to sort of be my ears and check on them because I don't speak Russian.
Well, it's interesting, Ronan, too, because I mean, people who watched 911 Lone Star might think a little bit differently if they knew some of that background that kind of went into him as well, too. So the same thing is like Mila Kunis, who speaks, I think, Russian as well. There's some actors and actresses out there that have that kind of extra to them. So
Sure.
did it Is that, not only were you searching for him, but he just become it for you automatically when you found that out?
Yeah, we'd been talking to a few actors, and then he showed up for a reading in the suit that he wears in the movie. That's his suit. And he showed up in character, and I didn't like him very much, like as a person. It kind of turned me off immediately. Now we're good friends. He's like a very sweet guy, and he's nothing
Right.
like that. But yeah, he was it the minute he walked in.
Was it because you don't think you could have pulled off the same suit? Was that why the hatred?
Yeah, right. I wish. That's a cool suit. I don't think I could wear it though.
Right. There is sometimes there's certain clothing that needs a personality to go with it, and you either know you have it or you don't. And
Sure.
I completely understand that 100%. Let's talk about shooting this film, because I got to say, it was well shot. I really love the lighting, the way we kind of enter not only the characters but the city, using inside of a plane or different small contained areas, but also with the right lighting, it kind of opens up into more. So, can you talk a little bit about your idea when it came to shooting something that some people would have thought would have been mostly just an escape room kind of feel, or escaping of a tight enclosed area?
Absolutely. Well, I mean, first and foremost, we wanted to give it some scale. So the escape room is just one element of the movie, really. I've been working with the same cinematographer for the last 7 or 8 years. His name is Jason Goodell, and it's been fun to kind of grow together. And he's a lighting guy first and foremost, so creating those textures with light, um, he's really good at, and I think it really shows. We shot this now 2 years ago. We were on set. It takes a while for movies to get finished and come out. But it was a pretty new workflow we were using too. This was all shot in 8K, with a pretty serious post pipeline to make it look like it looks. So it's fun to get to see that come to life, and he did a phenomenal job.
Yeah, even some of I'm guessing drone shots and things like that too
Hmm.
that I saw were awesome. I was very, very excited about that. Also, like I said, to
Thank you.
kind of see the city that I don't, for some reason in my mind, like you was talking about Moscow in my mind, I don't know why, but it's stuck in 80s mode of every
Sure,
movie I've seen in 80s mode. I mean, even in the last Mission Impossible, they just showed the Kremlin, really, right? So they
sure.
didn't really show anything else. So it's interesting to see more of the city and kind of seeing, when I see highways, it kind of connects my mind more when it comes to those kind of places and cities too.
Well,
Um,
we did a lot of research for that, but the whole film was shot in Los Angeles.
oh,
That's
really?
all. That's all visual effects, and like when they're in the cars driving around, that's all
Oh,
digital LED projection behind them and stuff. It's pretty cool.
oh, that's awesome. Well, very
Yeah.
cool. Well, that's something I'm interested to know too. But the idea of Moscow itself was always an interesting part of this story because of the fact that it's such an unknown, and it's something that, even though it is a place, as you mentioned, is beautiful and it has
Mhm.
so much history and great people. There's also this underlying gangster imagery of, like, people who are in charge of oil pipelines and power.
Sure.
So is that kind of something you wanted to kind of foster a little bit as well when you moved in?
Yeah, I think working with that as a backdrop, the wealth disparity in Russia is crazy. So you go to the big cities and it's gleaming, and then you go outside of them a little ways and it's third world. Um, so I talked to a lot of Russians about that beforehand, but I think it's also just sort of we wanted a very foreign feeling atmosphere that people have seen in movies but don't understand, and we wanted to make sure we didn't vilify Russia. The point is not that Russia's bad; it's
Right.
just a unique place that something like this could happen.
Right. Well, we'll get to that point in the same way that we don't always automatically think English people are, evil in a movie.
Sure.
Uh, there's a certain point where we'll fast forward past that. So the next thing I wanted to ask about was, setting up all of the torturing and
Mhm.
devices and visuals in that regard. Like, what was your thought process there about what you wanted to do? Because of course we've seen it done in so many different ways, especially with all the history of torture devices already out there.
Sure.
What was something that you kind of wanted to kind of move forward with when it came to this?
Well, it was important to me that the whole thing is from Cole's perspective. So, and less is more with things like blood and gore and torture and things like that. So, almost everything that happens is seen less than. I mean, you don't really see most of it. Your brain fills in the gaps with sound and things like that. But the real sort of directive to everybody was this is all from the one character's perspective, and so anything that he couldn't see, we're not allowed to see.
I got you.
And
And go for
oh,
it.
and just speaking to the sort of history of it in films, it's a lot of this is written to feel like Hostel or Saw, while for the characters because they're horror movie fans, and this is set up for them, so it should feel like that, and I think it has. So.
And I think so too. I guess, and one thing I like to ask all directors is there a certain day or moment that you can think back on when everything just went perfectly? Like you can still smile about how well that went, and you're like, this is great. Like even if it wasn't maybe on camera, but something that just went well for you.
Sure. Man, something that went entirely well is rare on a film set.
It really is, and that's why I ask directors, because there's always one moment where you were like, that made it. Like I knew
Yeah,
after that we're home.
shooting the cafe scene went incredibly smoothly. Shooting the water tank section of the movie went really, really well, even though it was pretty complicated. We did it over 2 days. And to me, that's some of the most magical part of filmmaking is all these people are doing their own individual piece of that to make it safe and to make it look right. And to see it all come together convincingly, that's pretty magical.
Sorry to
I
cut
mean,
you off, Derek, but you have one more minute.
no worries. So and I could say like the water scene, of course, is always one of those things too. The ability not to save someone right next to you as well. So
Sure.
I guess before this movie was made, and as you were kind of moving forward, what was it that you explained? How do you explain it to friends when they asked you before there was a visual, before there was really even anything to kind of show? How did you explain this film to them?
I wanted, it's a film that's about sort of the way we look at ourselves with social media, set within sort of an action horror thriller, and taking sort of something that they see on a regular basis and flipping it on its head.
Very cool. Well, I want to thank you very much for talking to us today. It's a lot of fun, and it doesn't follow the same lines we would expect when it comes to like Saw or some of those things
Sure.
too. So that's always fun. So I want to thank you again, and hope you have hope we had as much fun making as always to watch it. So
That was a blast. Thank you so much.